All right, hi everyone. Today I'm joined by Ian Shaffer, a Senior Product Specialist at Shimadzu Scientific Instruments, a leading analytical solution provider. Ian, so glad to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for having us.
Well, today we want to discuss your work in developing greenhouse gas analyzers, which is near and dear to my heart, with specific reference to two application notes that you wrote that are linked below here in the YouTube video. So Ian, do you want to give us a little bit of background on what is a greenhouse gas analyzer and why do we need them?
Sure. So typically a greenhouse gas analyzer is doing exactly what it sounds like. It's monitoring greenhouse gases. So greenhouse gases are really anything that kind of contribute to trapping infrared, which is actually causing, global warming and things of that nature. And so why do people need to monitor it? The environmental impacts of that, as well as the industrial measurements of that, are all very important to this. And we do see that there's particular interest for greenhouse gas analysis in a bunch of different markets, whether you're a petrochem, industrial partner monitoring your stack gases, to trying to identify new bacteria or things like that that are contributing to global warming. We really see this in a broad range of different applications. But typically, it's targeting gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and a few others that will normally be covered.
Great. And in terms of this work and these application notes, can you give us a sort of high-level overview of what you guys did?
Sure. So one of the major things that we were trying to consider when making a greenhouse gas analyzer is we wanted something that was fast, flexible, and really would give you kind of the most range of these different components. So something that we have heard regularly is a lot of these environmental monitoring groups, whether it's an academic lab or something like a government agency, is that they need throughput. And so the way that we accomplish this is we start to adapt, a lot of the new technologies and try and put that all into a unique solution.
And this is pretty new this year, or when did this product come out for you guys?
It's still very new. I believe it was released in 2020 into 2021. Is really in the midst of COVID. It was a little bit hard to be able to promote that. So it's a relatively new product, but it has actually gotten a lot of traction since its release.
Well, it's obviously super important, and the timing is really perfect as well. You see a lot of news articles on climate change and the need to mitigate climate change. And of course, we can't improve that with which we cannot measure. So we need to be able to measure those molecules. So how did it perform then when you did this study? How does that device perform in terms of quantifying those molecules, and how does that compare to maybe what else is out there?
Sure. So Shimadzu actually has a pretty decent history of making analyzers specifically for greenhouse gases. So our older approaches used kind of a lot of different packed columns to kind of give the separation that we needed, making sure that all the different analytes were going to the various places we need. So there's definitely been some major improvements over the technologies that are available. One, we switched to capillary columns, which overall will speed up the analysis and allow us to really kind of reach out to analytes that were otherwise not really friendly for the analysis. And then other technologies like the Jetanizer, which is a product near and dear to my heart at this point, really have enabled us to kind of simplify the whole setup and really just kind of take this to something that is much more approachable. So in terms of how did it perform, it actually performed excellently. So we're used to having to, again, for a traditional methanizer, oxygen, various components like that will just destroy the methanizer. So you have to add some special valving in front of it. You have to add additional columns, so on and so forth, just to try and avoid that from occurring. So with the Jetanizer, we were able to simplify that. So now we just have basically a straight path from the capillary column right into the FID. We're able to see CO, methane, CO2, all within 4 minutes. We can also go out to C2s, again, still within that time frame. On the ECD side, we do still have to worry about oxygen hitting the ECD. So we did still have a valve there, but the goal was have a single injection split to 2 columns and really be able to simplify the design. And it performed very well.
Yeah, I was very impressed when I was looking at the data. You had R squared values, correlation coefficients of 5 nines, and your RSDs also were incredibly good. Can you comment on that? Was that a surprise, and what contributes to that, really amazing performance?
Sure. So I think the biggest contribution is just really the advances in the technology. Again, I've used the Jetanizer for quite a few applications at this point and really put it through its paces, and it seems to just perform great for this kind of application. We don't really have oxygen too much as basically an interferent, which is huge because normally when you're doing this kind of analysis, if you're not cutting it away, you start instantly losing performance. And between having basically a fast analysis, we're running isothermal as well, and just the technology used, it was both a shock to me how well it performed, but also not a shock because, again, we have good technology thrown at it.
Yeah. Oh, I hadn't even realized it was isothermal. I missed that detail. So you're not actually doing a gradient. That makes it super fast to go run to run. And yeah, that's awesome. So you could pretty much go right from one run at 4 minutes right into the other run.
Exactly. Yeah. And one of the other things that we were aiming for is flexibility and expandability. So that we only show out to C2s. Since this is a straight column to detector application, we are able to potentially extend that out to other analytes, whether they're volatile halogenates on the ECD or whether it is additional hydrocarbons on the FID side. And so we really want to build in both the flexibility to support that. And it works well.
I love this innovation because it's forward thinking, but it's tackling a problem that is so existential right now for us. So very cool work. In terms of I was looking at the valving diagram and the columns. There is still some valving and a couple columns at least in there. Were there any complications that arose while you were trying to do this, or anything for users of this that they need to be aware of?
Sure. So the biggest thing whenever you're dealing with capillary column systems, where you are using valving and things like that, restriction is absolutely key. So balancing in that restriction took a little bit of finesse initially, but once you kind of have that dialed in, it works pretty repeatably very well. And I would say that's the biggest thing is particularly when you have interdependence between your 2 columns, making sure that split is consistent and making sure that you're retaining your peak shape.
Yeah, I've definitely spent some time with valving and getting spikes in my response and things like that. But the data you showed, it looks fantastic. So nice work. What will this mean if we look into the future? What will this mean for the future of greenhouse gas measurements?
Sure. So admittedly, again, what we're hoping to do with this is, again, provide the speed so that people can get much quicker results and just a lot more throughput to get the data that we need to, again, really kind of service this market, but also make sure that, we can be as reactionary as we need to, like as a scientific community. So as new greenhouse gases emerge, new applications like this emerge, at least we can stay on top of it and help support our customers in that respect.
Of course, yeah, and naturally, this is sitting on a nice Shimadzu chassis with your detectors and columns, and they can purchase everything from you guys. So that's great. How are your customers reacting to this device?
Overall, I think the feedback has been very positive. Again, I think speed has definitely been a great attraction to this, but also the simplicity. So one of the things, particularly in my design process, that I look for is, if I were a customer, what would I feel comfortable doing? And so, you know, if I see something that has 2 columns in it versus something that has 20 columns, it feels a lot more approachable and feels like something that, again, you're not going to be overwhelmed by, and then you can do that. So I think overall the response has been positive. The performance, as far as I've heard, has been wonderful. So I'm excited to see, as this progresses, kind of where this goes.
Well, that's great to hear. I mean, there's nothing more satisfying for me to hear that, and of course, thank you for using the Jetanizer and really creating a cool application out of this. So, love to hear that. Anything else that I might have missed that you'd want to touch on?
I think the one thing that I do want to just kind of bring up here, well, a couple things actually. One, on this system, I didn't mention, but extainer vials are frequently used for this. And so what those are pre-evacuated vials, which help really eliminate most of the atmosphere. We do have flexibility for that with our ASC 6000. And again, there's virtually no difference in the method between the two. But the other thing I did want to mention, because I feel like the applicability of the greenhouse gas analyzer can be extended to other markets. So N2 can be a byproduct of, say, things like ammonia analysis or ammonia production, things like that. But also just in general, like CO2 conversion reactors are another big thing that we're seeing a lot of. And the Jetanizer, again, I wouldn't believe it unless I had actually tested it, is linear up to basically 100% CO2 down to low ppm. And so honestly, this type of setup could additionally be extended to those kinds of applications and still perform great.
Well, that's fantastic. When you talk about those vials, are those the large kind of, this big metal evacuated vials that they do air sampling with, the PAMS kind of application?
No, these are actually I believe they're 12 mil. They almost look like test tubes, but they have a really thick septum. Yeah. So.
Okay, interesting. Well, great. This has been a lot of fun, Ian. Thank you so much for your time and hard work creating, these tools that are helping us fight climate change. I also want to thank our listeners out there for paying attention to this. And if you want to learn more, please reach out to Activated Research Company or Shimadzu and hit subscribe below. So, Ian, I just want to thank you. And if you want to thank the listeners as well,
yes,
you're welcome to
thank
do
you,
that.
Andrew. And thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Ian. It's great to have you, and we'll see you again in the future here. So that was Ian Shaffer with Shimadzu Scientific Instruments, and I'm Andrew Jones, the CEO and founder of Activated Research Company. Let's change the world.